When I was younger, I carried around both a prepaid phone and an iPod Touch because my parents were not subscribers to the iPhone's carriers at the time. And speaking of the iPod Touch, today we're going to be talking about the iPod Touch because Apple is discontinuing the current generation iPod Touch and through that the iPod line entirely. Let's get into this. Hey everybody, Blood Moon Bobby here. So, Apple is discontinuing the current generation of this product, the iPod Touch, and through that, it marks the end of their famous iPod music player line just over 20 years after Steve Jobs introduced the first generation in 2001. Now, of course, Apple themselves, they're not using the word discontinued in their press release. They're basically trying to soften in the blow, especially because if you go, look up all the news articles, they're saying they're discontinuing the iPods. But I got a quote here from Greg Joswiak. I know him as Joss from all of Apple's keynotes. He's their senior vice president of worldwide marketing, and this is what Joss had to say about the news. Quote, "Music has always been a part of our core at Apple, and bringing it to hundreds of millions of users in the way iPod did impacted more than just the music industry. It also redefined how music is discovered, listened to, and shared. Today, the spirit of iPod lives on. We've integrated an incredible music experience across all of our products, from the iPhone to the Apple Watch to HomePod Mini, and across Mac, iPad, and Apple TV. And Apple Music delivers industry-leading sound quality with support for spatial audio. There's no better way to enjoy, discover, and experience music." So, yeah, you could get the sense that they didn't want to, outright say, yeah, they're discontinuing iPods, but they explained it in, they softened the blow and explained it in, that kind of, nice sort of corporate way. But, yeah, I think, especially if you go to Apple's website and look at the iPod Touch, it says they are selling it while supplies last. So, yeah, that's pretty much a sign to me that they're discontinuing the iPods. It sort of reminds me of when Toyota discontinued their Scion cars. I remember watching this video on their YouTube channel that didn't say they were discontinuing them. They just said, oh, Scion lives on. So I feel like Apple is doing a very similar thing. So I wanted to use this video, even though I don't really talk about Apple products that much anymore. The iPod Touch does have a gaming related impact on me, and I'll get into that right now. So unlike a lot of modern gaming consoles, I didn't get into the iPod craze as soon as it came out, and part of the reason was because the original iPods came out when I was very young and I didn't have a Mac at the time. And also, just in general, I really didn't get into the whole music listening scene at that point. The iPod was one of those interests that was really sparked by my sister. I think what happened was she saw that a lot of the kids at school were getting interested in iPods, and it was becoming the really popular music player. And she was able to convince my parents to get the first generation iPod Shuffle, the one that kind of looks like a thumb drive. Because that was the most affordable one. And then miraculously, my dad actually got one for his birthday from one of his patients. It was the silver second generation Nano, one of the first ones to use the aluminum design. But I didn't really get into them as much, didn't really use them all that much. A few times, but not really. I didn't get into the iPod craze until 2008. This was when Apple was first, the iPhone was still in its relatively early days. I was learning about that, in middle school, I would go into the library and just, start, going on Apple's website. And that really sparked my modern interest in Apple, and I got really interested in the iPhone, and through that, I discovered that they had another product called the iPod Touch, and since my parents weren't subscribers to AT&T, I couldn't get the iPhone 3G, so in the Christmas of 2008, I was able to convince my parents to get me a second generation iPod Touch, and I was really happy with it. It was the first time I know it's a cliche to say that, but it was like the first time I had a device in my pocket that let me listen to music. I was getting into music because I was really into Guitar Hero 3 and I liked a lot of the songs in that game. So I bought the songs, some of the songs that were in that game from iTunes. I was also watching movies on it, like watching episodes of Avatar The Last Airbender. And in a sense, it got me into YouTube. I started watching YouTube videos on that second gen iPod Touch, or iTouch, as me and my family would call it. And I was also getting into the early App Store games, especially because at that time at my school, it was not considered cool to be playing Nintendo systems, which, you know, of course, I still love Nintendo to this day. But I got introduced to a lot of the early App Store games like iBowl, Trism, and Super Monkey Ball. So I really enjoyed those games, and I enjoyed that iPod Touch so much so that when the 5th generation came out, I convinced my parents to get this one. So this is the 5th generation. This is not the current generation. And I, you know, like this product a lot too. And yes, you might be able to see the screen is cracked because of a little accident that happened when I was a camp counselor for my high school. But yeah, I really liked how this was the generation that introduced colors. I got the product red version because red is my favorite color, and it was good to donate to a charitable cause. And you know what's weird is, like, looking back, when I first got this iPod Touch, I was like, wow, this looks really tall. And it's weird saying that today because this was the first the first one to have a 4-inch screen. And today, there are phones like this iPhone 12 mini, which have, like, a slightly bigger screen. And this, like, 12 mini is considered small by today's phone standards. So it's really interesting to look back and how I thought that this was really tall at the time. So it's really crazy stuff. So I had a good time with these products. Of course, Apple would introduce, I think, a couple more versions of the iPod Touch until they got to the current model, which has an A10 processor. I don't have the current generation iPod Touch. I know that it looks really similar to this one, just without the loop attachment, and it also has a newer A10 processor, the same processor that's in the iPhone 7. I had a really good time using, the couple generations of iPod Touch that I do have. But at the same time, I do acknowledge why that Apple is discontinuing it. And simply, I think it's because the use cases for the iPod have been dwindling over the years. Nowadays, lots of people are, watching movies, YouTube, streaming, and listening to music using their smartphones, even like the current generation iPhones, like this iPhone 12 mini, for instance, or, using their tablets, like iPads. So the use cases have been dwindling, and the few that I could see people using iPods for are just getting increasingly niche. Like, I could see somebody still wanting to use an iPod if, let's say, they're going to the gym and they're worried they're going to break their phone at the gym. So they want to use, like, the iPod as that sort of, like, second kind of backup device. Or I think I've seen in, like, restaurants, they'll use products like the iPod Touch to, take orders and that kind of stuff. But those two use cases are getting increasingly niche. I will say, I think if I was a kid today, I probably would still be drawn into getting the current generation iPod Touch, since I do like the idea of this pocketable device where you could watch movies and listen to music on it. And admittedly, I kind of miss the classic bezels of the older iOS devices. So I think even if I was a little kid today, I would still be drawn into it. But I could see why, others may be more interested in something like an iPad with a bigger screen, or even, some kids today, God, I sound so old, but, I've seen, like, some kids, they play games on, like, their parents' smartphone. So I could see why the use cases of the iPods have been dwindling. And even these days, iPhones, especially in the US, are compatible with more carriers these days. I mean, back in the day, I couldn't, get an iPhone since it wasn't compatible with, the carrier that my parents used. My parents prefer TrackBone. But nowadays, you can get SIM cards for a lot more carriers if you want to use unlocked versions of iPhones like the one I'm holding here. So the use cases are dwindling. Like, I could see why some may, prefer an iPod, but at the same time, I get why Apple is going to discontinue the current generation iPod Touch and by extension the entire iPod line. I feel like these days I mostly look at the iPods, like, whenever I do, the few times I do use them, it's kind of more for nostalgic reasons. I have been starting to collect them. One reason I could see getting a used iPod is that they are pretty cheap to find on eBay, so that's why I started collecting them, like, this iPod Classic here, and also this older generation iPod Classic. This is not the first generation iPod Classic. This is one of the, like, kind of newer, like, generations. This is not the original one, but I do have fun, getting to collect these. It's kind of nostalgic for me because I get to experience these devices that I didn't get to check out as much as a kid, and it does take me back to using portable products that could actually fit in your pocket pretty well. But it's mostly for nostalgic reasons. I could see why most of the market has moved on to smartphones, tablets, and even I myself, have also, followed suit in very much a similar way. I do, ultimately, though, I do respect iPods, and they were really, great for its time. And I do understand that iPods were a big reason for why, Apple has grown so much today, especially because back when the iPod first launched, Apple was still, like, mostly a computer company, and, the late CEO and co-founder Steve Jobs, just got back to Apple, only a few years, it was only a few years after he came back that the iPod was introduced. So, I respect its purpose at the time and how it helped Apple grow as a company, especially as they started to make iPods that were compatible with both Macs and PCs. But, I could see why they're discontinuing it. So, yeah, so I just wanted to make this video as a kind of iPod appreciation video because I've had fun times using them, especially the second and fifth generation iPod Touch. So let me know your thoughts down below. Were you in a similar situation as me where you had to use both a prepaid phone and an iPod Touch? What are some of your favorite iOS games? Leave all those thoughts down below. And until next time, this has been Blood Moon Bobby, and thank you all for watching. Hi everyone, thanks for watching this Blood Moon Bobby video. Like and share the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel to see more of my videos and ring the bell to be notified about my latest uploads. Don't forget to follow me on social media for my latest opinions and video updates. I hope to see you next time.